my friend Carlos and I would always go out shoveling people's sidewalks after big snowstorms to make some quick cash. In like 2013 or 2014, our town was in the midst of a blizzard. It was dark, windy, and snow was building up fast. Our school already announced it would be closed due to snow the next day. So with nothing to do that night, and it being only like 8 p.m., we went out with our shovels and started ringing doorbells, offering to shovel sidewalks for cash. We got a lot of no's before we got our first yes. We made around $15 each on our first house. We made our way across the neighborhood. A lot of people weren't interested, and most people just wouldn't open their doors. We got a second house eventually, and made a little more money on that one. Then I remember a long gap between that house and the next house that would say yes. It was a small corner house, but usually corner houses would pay more. We rang the bell, and the door cracked open, but whoever was on the other side didn't show their face. They did, however, speak from the other side. A deep man's voice said, "Who's there?" I pitched our snow shoveling service to the man on the other side, requesting $40 in return since it was a corner house. There was a short silence. Then the voice on the other side said, "Oh yes, please, $40 is fine." There was a hint of nervousness in the voice. I said all right, and then the door shut. I didn't see the man's face at all. I turned to Carlos and said that was weird, but we started the shoveling. I started from the front porch down the walkway to the driveway. Carlos worked on the sidewalks. I couldn't help but stare at the house every once in a while, and at one point when I turned to a window as I was throwing the snow from my shovel onto the ground, I saw who I assumed to be the homeowner. He was standing at one of the windows, watching me. Could I see anything of his face? Not really. He was standing in a dark room. A little uncomfortable it made me, but I tried my best to ignore it and continue shoveling. Of course, I'd occasionally glance back, and he would still be there. Eventually, I finished the driveway, just around the same time Carlos finished the sidewalks. So we started our way back up the walkway to the front stoop. But before getting to the stoop, the door opened, and the man inside shouted, "Go around back." Carlos and I froze, looked at each other, then obeyed his command. We stepped through the snow-covered grass to the backyard gate. I opened it and pushed it through the rising snow, which was slightly difficult. Then, there we were, in the man's backyard, which had a small awning that we stayed under to get out from the falling snow. We waited by the back door, expecting him to come outside eventually with our money. We waited for over a minute and started getting antsy. I started pounding on the back door since there didn't seem to be a doorbell. Then there was the sound of a window being rotated open, followed by the man's voice again, saying, "Come inside." Carlos and I looked at each other again, and then I led the way in through the back door. All the lights in this house were turned off. It was actually so hard to see anything, really. "Hello?" I said. I heard a man's voice from another room call, "I'm counting your money on the table." It seemed he was inside the kitchen, which was connected by a small door through the room we entered from. We walked closer to the kitchen, which appeared to be lit up through the window only by the streetlights standing on the side of the house. I stood at the doorway, intending on looking through the crack of the door to see where the guy was standing in the kitchen, but I couldn't see through the crack because it was blocked by him. The man was standing on the other side of the door, looking through the crack. I turned and pretended I didn't see him. I made up some bull, like telling Carlos we forgot something outside. We left the house, and the man didn't say a word. As soon as we got outside, we grabbed our shovels and sprinted away from there. All of our hard work shoveling that house was for nothing. We got back to my backyard, put the shovels away, and went inside to warm up and rest for a little bit. Carlos and I chilled for a little bit, then it was time for him to go. He went out the back to get his shovel, but he came back inside, concerned, telling me to come take a look at something. There was an extra, fresh set of boot marks in the snow. You may ask how we knew. That's because one set trailed from the gate to the back door to the shed in the corner of our backyard. Carlos hurried back inside, and we told my mom. We live in a very poor, relatively unsafe neighborhood, so my mom was quick to believe us and get 911 on the phone. Police showed up relatively quickly considering the horrible driving conditions, and they went to investigate the shed. Carlos, my mom, and I watched through the back window as the police pulled out a man from the shed. He had a matching shirt from what I could see through the window back when we were shoveling that property. It was undoubtedly the house owner. He later admitted to police that he was going to attempt to break into the house when we all went to sleep. Why, however, he never answered. Police also said he was very intoxicated when he admitted this, which made me think, what on earth was he going to do to us in that kitchen if we didn't leave his house? It was an early December night, and we were having our first snowstorm of the year. I was in my bed watching some low-budget Christmas film while texting various friends, mostly my friends George and Pat. We used to text in a 3-person group chat. Everything was as it should be, when I felt my heart drop to my stomach as a bang came from the window right next to my bed. I opened the curtain, but there was no one standing out there. Then, pow, there was another, as I was still looking out the window. It was a snowball. Someone was throwing snowballs at my window. I stood on my bed to get the best possible view out the window, but I didn't see anyone standing out there in the snow. So I actually lifted open my window to call out. It was almost immediately after I shouted out the window that I heard someone's laughter. Not a child's laughter like I was expecting it to be. It was a deeper voice, could belong to anyone from the age of 17 to 40 for all I knew. I shut the window and started texting in our little group chat saying I knew it was one of them messing with me. The fact that they now weren't responding made me even more confident. I didn't close the curtain as I knew whichever one of them it was, they weren't done messing with me. And just like that, another snowball hit my window. I lifted the window up quickly to try and catch them. And there he was, standing in the snow, waving to me. But it wasn't either of my friends. It was some guy in a black beanie and black coat with gloves on, laughing. He started approaching the window. I hurried and slammed it shut and twisted the little lock. I also closed the curtain so that he couldn't look into my room. Both of my friends had texted back by now with question mark responses. Then there was a single knock at my window, and it started being fiddled with and shaken. He was trying to lift it open. When it all stopped, I waited a couple minutes before peeking through the curtain. It seemed the coast was clear, so I finally went to go tell my mom and dad about the whole thing, who came to have a look out my window. Sure, my dad believed me, he literally saw the footprints in the snow, but he just didn't see it necessary to call the police, figuring whoever was out there gave up. My dad turned on all the outside lights just as a deterrent, and then they went to sleep. I stayed up in my room with the lights off, continuing to watch movies. My door clicked open. I said get out, assuming it was my little brother. The door shut, so it seemed he listened to me. Silence, except for the TV. I watched for a long while, then a click in my wood floor. I turned, halfway through repeating get out in a louder voice, when realizing it was not my short little brother. It was that tall man in the black beanie and coat from outside. He started waving to me again at the doorway, then put his pointer finger up to his lips. He started walking over to my bed, and that's when I got up, ready to defend myself. He approached faster now, easily grabbed me, and covered my mouth with his leather gloves. There was a wet white towel in his glove that he was pressing to my face for a long time. I tried to break free and scream, but I couldn't, and that was the last thing I remember before everything went black. I woke up in my living room with my parents and police hovering over me. An ambulance arrived shortly. My dad heard the commotion going on in my room and came to find the man over me. My dad, much larger than that man, managed to overpower him, but not long enough before the police could arrive. He ran out the front door and disappeared. I was quickly brought to the hospital. Thankfully, I was all right. If you're wondering, the man climbed in through our downstairs window. It's a little-known common courtesy out in the mountains during a snowstorm that if someone's seeking shelter in your cabin, you let them in. No, I wasn't the one offering that courtesy to someone else in the story. I was the one seeking refuge. It was supposed to be a long weekend of hunting, but what started as a cold, sunny day quickly formed tons of dark storm clouds, and I quickly found myself right in the middle of a blizzard. After a full, rather unsuccessful day of hunting hares, I was way too far and disoriented to make my way back to my cabin. I had to seek refuge somewhere else. I came across a log cabin nestled between a circle of trees. No lights on, but I still had to try the door. I hit the door with my fist a few times. No answer, but I could hear footsteps on the other side approaching the door. I expected it to open, but it didn't. I shouted that I'm lost and need shelter. The door cracked open, and I heard a voice say, "Come in, leave your boots by the door." I waited a bit, expecting him to open the door fully and formally greet me as anyone would, but that didn't happen, so I pushed the door open myself and entered the dark cabin. The room was lit by 2 candles, just enough for me to see the couch that the man then told me to sleep on. As for the man, all I saw was his silhouette on the far side of the room. The little light from the candles didn't extend that far. I dropped my bag and gun on the floor and laid down on the couch. I thanked the man for letting me crash here till the storm blows over. He didn't answer. His behavior wasn't the most bizarre thing. Folks are strange up in the mountains. If he wasn't up for conversation, I'd just get some early shut-eye. I closed my eyes, though the level of darkness with my eyes closed wasn't much of a difference. I was subconsciously waiting to hear the man's footsteps leave the room, but they never did. I opened my eyes, and his silhouette was still in the corner of the room, just standing there. I felt the need to say, "Yeah, I think I'm just going to get some sleep now, thanks." No response. I turned to my other side so that I wouldn't be tempted to just keep opening my eyes to check on him. Some time passed, but without having heard his footsteps walk away, the curiosity was eating away at me. I turned over to look again, and this time, I swear to God, the silhouette of the man was closer by at least a few feet. I couldn't make out his face, but the slight glow from the candles would just barely trickle around the man's forehead, and what I saw was disgustingly pale skin. I quickly gathered my belongings and thanked him, but I said I had to go. I didn't look at him anymore, because I don't think I wanted to know what he looked like. I put my boots on outside and hurried back into the blizzard. I came across another cabin down the hill, this one with the lights on. I knocked on the door, and some old man and his wife answered the door. They welcomed me in immediately and were very inviting. They gave me some hot tea and offered me a spot on the couch. I told them my story about the freaky cabin up the hill, and the two looked at each other, puzzled. The woman confirmed 2 times the cabin I was talking about. Then she said, "Honey, the owner of that cabin was murdered 2 years ago. That cabin has been vacant ever since." This first ad is in the spirit of Halloween. It's titled "Free Candy This Halloween" and reads, "Hello kids. Due to coronavirus possibly putting a damper on festivities, I bought tons of candy to share with you. I've loaded up on a lifetime supply of candies. Who will get here first to claim the most? Come with as many friends as you want, but no one over the age of 13, as I believe that's past the age for trick-or-treating. Also nobody under the age of 8. Be sure to wear your costume. The better the costume, the more candies you'll get. We'll also be having a scavenger hunt in my house. Winner takes home 2 buckets worth of candy and anything they find. You don't need to bring parents." This ad was found by a subscriber named BTreeX3 just a few days ago, who says the post has since been removed, likely for being flagged too many times. If there were ever an ad that screamed child endangerment, this would be it. This ad was a fake job offer. It was titled "Looking for Someone Young to Clean Out the Basement Back Room." The description was, "Hi there. I have a big basement with a big back room with a lot of stuff that needs cleaning. Preferably somebody under the age of 16. I will pay $20 an hour. I have a pool table, TV, and arcade games in the back room. We can have lots of fun together. In fact, you don't even have to work the whole time if you don't want to. I'll be willing to pick you up if you don't have a ride. Please email me ASAP. Update: I will only hire people under the age of 16, as I am not willing to pay more. This ad was posted by David Loven, who was arrested for 88 counts of some kind of child endangerment. He almost caught a 13-year-old boy with this ad. However, the boy turned around after David reportedly opened the door before he could even get to the stoop, as if he were creepily watching and waiting. David was sentenced to life in prison. This ad is the equivalent of an old man inviting you into his van. Nothing about his picture helps the situation. He's basically seeking a young lady to live with him rent-free, just covering her food, drinks, and personal needs. Unfortunately, the ad takes a turn for the worse when the man mentions he wants someone free of hang-ups in the bedroom, making his real intentions more than clear. This ad should be enough to make most girls uncomfortable. This is one that you really just have to hope is not real. Another subscriber found this ad a few months ago, and the poster seems to boast about murdering somebody in cold blood and leaving their body in a dumpster in a bad neighborhood in the Bronx. There's no way of verifying if this was real, as there doesn't seem to be any information on it on the internet. The person who sent me this said they flagged the post but never checked if it was taken down or not. The thing is, most people should be aware that posting something like this would likely lead to authorities getting involved in tracking the source of the ad, so it doesn't seem too likely or smart for someone to post something like this as a prank. Looking for a young teen girl to come clean my house from the hours of 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday to Friday. I pay $15 an hour. You will be in charge of cleaning and dusting furniture, mopping, sweeping, weeding, and feeding the cats. I know it's tough to find a job at such a young age, so you likely don't drive, so I'll be willing to pick you up in the morning. I work 12 p.m. to 8 p.m., so you'll only see me in the morning. I hope you can get in contact with me, and it may also be the start of a beautiful friendship. Call, text, or email for more info. The parents of the child who found this ad on Craigslist found it very suspicious, so they reported it to the police. It turned out the poster of this ad was Phil Luna, who had actually already been arrested for another illegal Craigslist ordeal. He was said to have gotten onto a plane to come to Florida in order to meet what he thought was going to be a mother and her 11-year-old daughter, according to a Craigslist ad set up by police. This ad was posted very recently, and it was an extremely bizarre and disturbing request. It reads, "Hello, I have an unusual request. I'm willing to pay up to $100 a night to watch a young man or woman sleep. I will pay $50 if you let me watch from outside your window. You have to keep the blinds and window open, obviously, or inside your room for $100 a night. Don't worry, I won't steal anything or hurt you. I'm an honest man who wants what he wants. No questions asked on either side. We can both benefit from this. Must be low-key." A few important questions arise from this post. Namely, does this man actually get off somehow watching people sleep? And what would he do to somebody who actually allowed him to watch them sleep in their own bedroom? Donate your blood or life to Satan. This disturbingly poorly written ad may seem like something a little kid wrote and posted as a joke. However, it was actually very real. Since the poster foolishly left the address and time of the meeting open for anybody to see, a tip was given to the police and they busted the little gathering. There were a total of 4 men dressed in black, sexual-looking absurd garments surrounding a pentagram on the ground that was made out of human blood. They were all arrested. This next listing was an ad for a rentable room available in a house. On the surface, it looks alright, until you read the rules the owner wrote. The notable ones being never ever go in the basement, that's my personal space. Do not ask about any funky odors, I experiment with cooking and store meats in the basement. If you're gonna have guests in the house, only one at a time, and you must give me a heads up beforehand. We do not ever use the kitchen at the same time. You do not take any photos or videos inside the house, that includes even selfies. Do not lock any doors, not the bathroom, not your bedroom. Personally, I'm no detective, but something about this ad says cannibal roommate to me. If not that, the man must have been hiding something very strange in the basement. He also couldn't help but leave it off on a creepy note, asking for anyone who's interested to first send pictures of themselves to him before he would get back to them. This ad was posted by Anthony Brinkman. He wanted someone to do unquestionable things to his 11-year-old daughter while he watched. The motive was his own twisted sexual fantasy. Police were made aware of this ad shortly after it went online. Law enforcement officials posed as a woman interested in helping Brinkman fulfill his fantasy. They arranged a meeting with Brinkman at a restaurant in South St. Louis, and he arrived with his daughter. Brinkman was arrested immediately and later admitted to posting the ad, as well as possessing child pornography. The person who posted this one just gets straight to the point, stating he's seeking a cute girl to clean his apartment naked or topless. He asks for a few pictures beforehand and for their hourly rate, as if there's some kind of going rate for nude apartment cleaning. Being that it's Craigslist, it's highly unlikely that this was even a joke. In 2014, 34-year-old Sherwin Go was arrested for allegedly posing as a woman to lure underage boys to his house. Sherwin used the Craigslist personal section to post his ads, and led responders to believe he was female. At the time of his arrest, he had been exchanging explicit emails with at least 2 underage males. He was suspected to have made physical contact with one of them. Thankfully, the other boy's parents discovered the exchanges and alerted authorities before he could become Sherwin's next victim. This ad was found last year by a subscriber by the name of Nico, who found the ad immediately suspicious. The ad read, "Come stop by this Halloween for a homemade basement haunted house maze, full of scares and candies. Catered towards middle schoolers and under. Free soda and pizza will be upstairs." After doing a reverse image search of the picture, he was able to find it on the internet already. After realizing this, he decided to drive by the house as it wasn't too far from him. And when he passed the address on the ad, he saw, in his words, a very small, off-putting house with a sketchy-looking man in a trucker's hat and dirty jeans sitting on the front stoop. He took one look, made eye contact with the man, and drove off. The ad was removed the next day. Hopefully nobody actually showed up to the house. What I'm about to show you in this video are 3 different sets of texts that become much scarier when you hear the background stories behind them. In this first one, these are texts between a young girl named Emily and her mom. Emily sent me screenshots of these texts along with the background story to go with them. First, to read the texts. Emily says to her mom, "Are you home?" "No, still with your dad, what's up?" "I heard someone come in." "The house? Is Peter home?" "I don't know, I've been in my room." "I don't think so, because he was supposed to work till 12 tonight." "Are you sure you heard the door open then?" "Mom, there's someone in the house." "What? Who is it?" "Mom, I don't know, there's some man walking around downstairs. I'm scared, what do I do?" "Emily, find somewhere to hide right now, I'm calling the police. Lock your door right now and hide somewhere in your room, okay?" "Okay, I'm in the closet." "Okay, good, sweetie, I'm on the phone with the police, don't make any noise at all. Stay in the closet until you hear the police come inside the house." "Do you still hear them?" "Mom, he's trying to open the door." "Emily, please just be quiet, you're gonna be okay, the police are almost there." "Emily, the police are there, are you okay?" This was where the texts ended. This was what was going on that night when Emily sent these texts to her mom. She was home alone while her mother was out to dinner with her dad, and her older brother Peter was working late. Nobody was expected to be home except for her at this time, so when she heard the front door closing downstairs, she was immediately alarmed and concerned. She texted her mother asking if she and her dad possibly returned home early, to which her mother shot that down, saying she was still with her father. On the side, sometime between her mom asking Emily if she was sure she heard the front door open and her follow-up question mark, Emily texted her brother Peter as well asking if he was home, and he replied he was still at work. At this point, Emily peeked out her bedroom door down the stairs and saw, in her words, a 30-something-year-old tall man in a hoodie, beanie, and black sweatpants walking around her living room. At this point, she started to freak out and locked her bedroom door as quiet as she could and continued to text her mom. Upon telling her mom some stranger was in the house, the mom suggested Emily hide in the closet while she got on the phone with the police. While sitting in her bedroom closet trying to wait this nightmare out, Emily heard the man fiddling with the doorknob to her bedroom trying to open the door, followed with him trying to forcefully break the door open by the sound of it.
This was where Emily stopped replying to her mother, as she was too scared to even move a muscle in fear of being heard, even after the man gave up on the door. Police arrived and entered through the front door, which was unlocked, and they knew to go straight to Emily's closet. It was only then, when the police opened the closet door, that she felt safe to move. The intruder had stolen a number of valuables, but Emily was fortunate enough to have made it through this unharmed. She called her mother while the police were there to let her know she was okay, and the parents returned home shortly thereafter. This is a perfect example of why you should always make sure all the entrances to your house are locked, especially at night or when you're home alone. In this next one, the following texts are between a girl who wishes to remain anonymous, who I'll just refer to as Amanda, a guy named Jake who she met a handful of times through friends, and separate texts among Amanda and her friend Alyssa. It starts with Jake texting Amanda, "Hey," and this is how it goes. "Hey, what are you doing?" "Nothing, what about you?" "Same, want to hang out." "Maybe, what do you want to do?" "I mean, we can't hang here because my parents are home, but what if I came to you? Are your parents home?" "Nope." "So let me come, lol." "When?" "I'm free now if that works for you." "What made you even think to hit me up?" "You're really pretty and I just want to hang out with you." "Okay, I look like a potato right now, so you have to give me some time to get ready." "That's fine, what's your address?" "Word, I'll head over soon." "Wait, no, don't, I need time to get ready." The text between Amanda and Jake left off there, where he apparently left her text unread when she asked him not to come over just yet. At the same time, she went to go text her friend Alyssa about it, as Alyssa's part of the same friend circle as the two of them. Amanda was surprised to be hearing from Jake and texts Alyssa to see her reaction about it. This is how those texts went. "OMG, he randomly hit me up, and he wants to come over. Are you gonna let him?" "I told him yeah, but to let me get ready. He said he's gonna head over soon." "I told him wait, but he left me on scene." "Wait, hang on. I feel like it's weird that he's texting you. I'm gonna call him." "Why? Don't mention me." "I won't, but he's not picking up FaceTime anyway." "I'm calling Jamie. This is weird." "Why is it so weird?" "Because I know he wouldn't just text you like that." Immediately, Alyssa finds it surprising and odd that Jake would text Alyssa, for the sole reason that Jake was apparently on the verge of officially dating someone else. When Alyssa tries to call Jake multiple times but fails, she then resorts to calling Jake's sister Jamie, who was also part of the same friend group. All the while, Amanda is confused as to why Alyssa finds this all so weird. Alyssa's last text to Amanda was OMFG, before calling her, revealing that Jamie told her over FaceTime that Jake lost his phone the day before, and his Find My iPhone was disabled. They obviously quickly draw the conclusion that whoever was texting Amanda was not Jake. Jake then got on the phone with Amanda and told her that whoever had his phone was nobody that he knew, because he lost his phone during his morning run. The three didn't know whether it was just a prank or not, until Amanda got a follow-up text from the person who had Jake's phone, saying, "I'm here, I'm at the door." Given that the whole reason this person came over was because Amanda said her parents weren't home, and whoever was on the other side of the door likely meant her harm, and they were aware she was a defenseless girl home alone. Amanda looked through the peephole of her front door, and there was someone in a hood standing on her front porch, looking at the peephole. Amanda sent one final text saying this: "I know this phone was stolen, I called the cops already, they're almost here. You better get out of here and never come back or you'll be sorry. We also have you on video cameras, so wave hello." The person read the text right away and didn't respond. The next time she checked through the peephole, the person was gone. Jake was able to get his IMEI number, and since it was being used for illegal activity, police helped track the phone to a man who lived a town over, who was prosecuted accordingly, and in this case, justice was actually served. In this last one, these were the texts received by single mother Marissa Rivera. Marissa was awoken by her phone vibrating on her nightstand at 1 in the morning on a Friday night. On the screen were a bunch of texts from her son John. The text went as follows: "Mom, I need help. I got into a car accident. Can you come pick me up? I think I injured my elbow. The damage is pretty bad. I don't know what to do. Please tell me you're joking. Are you okay?" "Yes, my elbow just hurts." "Where are you?" "At the intersection of Robeson Street and Humphrey Lane by Longley Supply." "Is Kevin with you?" "No, I'm alone." "Okay, just stay there, I'm coming." Marissa started to get ready to go to her son's aid when she remembered he had location sharing on with her. So, wanting to make sure he gave the right location, she checked where her son's iPhone was located. She was taken aback when she saw John's location was at the house, not at this random intersection. She went to John's room, but he wasn't in his bed. so she went and called her other son Kevin, who was also still out. Kevin picked up his phone, sounding intoxicated, according to Marissa, and when asked if Kevin was with John, he said yes, and John said "Hi, Mom" into the phone, less drunk sounding than Kevin. The two were together and claimed there was no car accident and that John lost his phone. Marissa came to the horrible realization that if her kids were telling the truth, somebody else was in the house with her using John's phone. Marissa left the house with her cell phone and called the police while hiding in her car, reporting a breaking and entering. When police showed up and searched the house, nobody was there. On top of that, John's phone location was updated to down the block, but that was the last known location before it was either turned off or broken. The office window of the house was the most likely entry and exit point since, according to Marissa, it's easily liftable and big enough for most people to fit through. Marissa was having the conversation with her sons while standing in the middle of the house, loud enough for whoever was in the house with her to hear her realization that the car accident never happened, and heard her rushing out of the house. What most likely happened here was somebody who knew John either stole or found his phone, broke into the house through the window, and tried tricking their mom into leaving the house so that they could rob the place while nobody was home. Thankfully, she called her other son and was able to realize it was some kind of setup, and she was able to get the police to the house. The family was never able to find out who was the one who sent the text on John's phone. Perhaps another story illustrating the importance of having a passcode on your phone to prevent a stranger or anybody else from having complete access to it.
West Bengal, India has its fair share of allegedly haunted places, but perhaps none are as creepy or as intriguing as the Aliyah ghost lights. In the swampy marshes of West Bengal, there have been many sightings of these lights called Aliyah or jack-o'-lantern. They're described to be a flickering ball of light that emerges usually in the marshy regions of West Bengal and Bangladesh, and they've been attributed to being the cause of death of many fishermen. The fishermen community of the area have often spotted these unexplainable lights, and many believe that some of the fishermen were so transfixed after seeing the Aliyah light that they followed it and drowned. It's also believed by many in the area that these lights are the spirits of dead fishermen who lost their lives fishing in the marshes. These lights at times confuse the fishermen, causing them to fall in the water and drown, but also at other times, they may help guide them and prevent them from getting into danger. At least that's what locals believe. Aliyah ghost lights are not just limited to West Bengal though. They've been spotted in various places around the world, and these lights have long been associated with the paranormal or spirits. Some good spirits, some bad spirits. It's said that once you follow one of these lights, they'll flicker and diminish in size until they disappear, often causing people to panic and get lost. People have seen these lights all around the world in graveyards, swamps, and boglands, and they have been referred to as many different names. Anaya Carr from Siliguri was on the phone with her husband who was on a solo fishing trip, and when he had mentioned seeing a bright light glimmering across the marsh, he stopped replying, though the call didn't end right away. Anaya would keep saying her husband's name into the phone until it sounded like the phone was dropped, and then the call abruptly ended. Her husband was never seen again. In 2014, taxi drivers in Ibadan, Nigeria were starting to disappear, and while there was no outward evidence of any sort of foul play at first, people started to become suspicious when more and more people would disappear and mysterious-looking strangers would be lurking the area. Police were notified of the disappearances, but reportedly were uncooperative, refusing to investigate further and saying that the men had likely just run off. As the disappearances continued in the area, there was still no official response, until a motorcyclist riding down a highway claimed that he had heard some crying out for help from the forest. On March 22, 2014, police finally went about investigating the forest, where they would stumble across a literal house of horrors. There, tucked away in the trees, was a seemingly abandoned building from which emanated a vile stench. Upon entering the building, they were met with countless decomposed human corpses, most of which had been bound with chains. As the search of the place continued, police began turning up other human remains in the surrounding area, many of them having been butchered and missing limbs, some of them even still bound with chains. There were also numerous human remains found scattered in the surrounding woods, stuffed within bushes, in the nooks of trees, or dumped into holes in the ground or into caves. The corpses and remains were in various states of decomposition, many of them missing limbs or internal organs. In total, over 20 decomposed human bodies and hundreds of human skulls were found in the forest, and there was a separate building full of only personal belongings of the victims, including licenses, clothing, and even children's toys. 15 people were rescued who were chained up in captivity, all severely malnourished. When police interviewed them, in most cases they could not identify the people who had taken them, but they described that they had been kidnapped, tortured, and kept in shackles with once-a-week feedings. However, a few claimed that the men who kidnapped them had been government officials, or at least were posing as them. The answers as to what exactly happened here have not been made completely clear, and it's unknown who took these people or where they went. And while some arrests were made, no one has been officially charged with any of it. On January 2nd, 2000, Zeb Wayne Quinn went missing in Asheville, North Carolina. Zeb was 18 years old and working at a local Walmart in the electronics section when he disappeared after finishing his shift. At around 9 p.m., he had plans to travel a moderate distance with his coworker Robert Jason Owens to buy a new car. Zeb met Robert in the Walmart parking lot before they drove separately to look at the vehicle. The two men were seen on surveillance footage at a nearby gas station at approximately 9:15 p.m. purchasing sodas at a convenience store. According to Robert, after leaving the gas station, Zeb signaled for him to pull over by flashing his headlights. Zeb told him that he had received a page and needed to return the call. After he returned from using a payphone, Robert described Zeb as frantic and nervous. Zeb told him that he needed to cancel their plans to view the car, and he eventually sped off, rear-ending Robert's truck in the process. Hours later, Robert was treated at a hospital for fractured ribs and a head injury that he claimed was due to a second car accident that same evening. No accident report was ever filed with police. The following afternoon, Zeb's mother Denise filed a missing persons report. 2 days after he was last seen, a man claiming to be Zeb placed a phone call to the Walmart where he worked. The man told Zeb's coworker that he would not be coming to work due to coming down with a fever, but the coworker recognized that the voice was not Zeb's. The phone call was placed back to a Volvo plant where Robert worked. When questioned, Robert admitted to making the phone call, claiming that he was doing Zeb a favor after he called and asked Robert to call in sick for him. During police investigations, a woman named Misty Taylor was interviewed, as she and Zeb had become romantically involved in the weeks prior to his disappearance, and he had told friends and family that he had been threatened by her abusive boyfriend Wesley Smith after he discovered that the two of them had been speaking. On January 6, 2000, Zeb's mom received a phone call from a former classmate of her son, who happened to be a coworker at the Asheville hospital where both were nurses, who told her that she had seen his car in the parking lot of a barbecue restaurant next to the hospital. Police examined the car, which had been left with its headlights on, but there was also a pair of lips and an exclamation mark drawn on the car's back windshield in lipstick, and a live puppy was found inside. A plastic hotel keycard was also discovered in the vehicle, but police couldn't find the source hotel. There was also a jacket that didn't belong to Zeb in the car. Police collected forensic evidence from the car, but uncovered no new leads. Zeb's mother believes that the car was placed there by somebody that knew that his family worked and lived nearby, intending that one of them would find it. A couple later called police to report that they had seen Zeb's car being driven in downtown Asheville before it was parked at the restaurant, and assisted police in producing a composite image of the person driving the car. Police later noted that the sketch looked identical to Misty Taylor. Robert Jason Owens was arrested in 2017 for the murder of Zeb. However, in his plea agreement in July of 2022, just last month, Robert's story went that his uncle Gene, who died in 2017, knew Misty Taylor's aggressive boyfriend and was asked to do something to keep Zeb away from her, and Robert said his uncle's remedy was murder, though he said that he played no part and only witnessed it. The judge accepted Robert's plea and sentenced him to 150 to 189 months in prison, which will be served concurrent to a 60 to 75-year sentence he's currently serving for the murder of a couple in 2015, which is an entirely different story of its own. Regarding Zeb's murder, no one can really know for sure what actually happened. On July 13, 2011, Rebecca Zahow was found hanging at the Spreckles Mansion in Coronado, California, and she was pronounced dead by first responders called to the residence. Rebecca's body was found nude, bound, and gagged.
Her death occurred 2 days after 6-year-old Max Shackney, the son of her boyfriend Jonah Shackney, had fallen from the staircase of the mansion and was held in a hospital in critical condition. Rebecca and her younger sister Zena were the only people present at the time of Max's fall. On July 16, 2011, Max succumbed to his injuries and died in the hospital. Rebecca's death was ruled a suicide, but her sisters don't buy it and have long pressed their point, waging battles both with authorities and possible suspects. On July 12, 2011, Rebecca dropped off Zena at the airport for her flight back to Missouri, and then picked up Jonah's brother Adam, who had just arrived on a flight from Memphis, Tennessee. Rebecca, Jonah, and Adam ate dinner with a friend named Howard that evening. Afterwards, Rebecca and Adam returned to the Spreckles mansion, while Jonah held a vigil for Max with the child's mother, Dina Romano. There were reports of loud music coming from the Spreckles mansion later that night. On the morning of July 13th at around 6:45 a.m., Adam stated that he found Rebecca's nude body hanging from a balcony, with her wrists and ankles bound and her hands behind her back. He called 911 at 6:48 a.m., then sent a text message to his brother to inform him of the news. He cut down her body before the police arrived. Medics attempted to revive her, but it was already far too late. Police performed an autopsy to determine the cause of death, and from the start, speculations of foul play had arisen, but investigators were unable to find any other DNA at the scene besides Rebecca's. The San Diego Sheriff's Department formally announced their finding that Rebecca had committed suicide, but her family wasn't happy about that, and they were firm on their belief that she did not commit suicide. Family and friends looked at Adam Shackney, Jonah's brother, as a prime suspect, as he was alone in the house with Rebecca during her hanging, and it could have been a revenge killing for the accidental death of his nephew while he was under Rebecca's watch. For 7 years, Rebecca's sisters had to fight to make it known she didn't commit suicide, and eventually it paid off. In 2018, a jury in San Diego found Adam Shackney responsible for the hanging death of Rebecca after a month-long civil trial. Rebecca's family was awarded more than $5 million for loss of companionship. The 12-member jury found Shackney responsible for her death in a 9-3 vote. The majority agreed Adam touched Rebecca with intent to harm her before her death, and the touching caused her death. The court never awarded any punitive damages. Because this was a civil trial, Adam didn't face any criminal charges and cannot be sentenced to prison. Regardless of the civil suit, the findings by police allegedly pointed at Jonah and Adam being innocent and Rebecca's death being a suicide. But the biggest flaw in that would be the way in which Rebecca's body was found hanging, bound and gagged. It's not something somebody would do to themselves. Still, what really happened may never be known for sure. I've always loved thunderstorms ever since I was a kid, and so does my 6-year-old son. Anytime there's a storm, my son and I will sit in the backyard under the gazebo and just watch and listen. This was on a hot, stormy August night in Florida. As soon as we heard the first strike of lightning in the living room, my son jumped up and said, "Let's go sit outside." I followed him outside, where we ran from the back door to the gazebo, getting pretty wet on the way. It was already pouring. I have a nice setup under my backyard gazebo. It has a mini bar, a few wicker sofas, a TV, and mini fire pit. As we usually would, I turned on the fire pit and TV, and my son and I just laid back and relaxed, listening to the sound of the pouring rain and constant thunder. The thunder would get louder and louder as we sat out there, and the time between the flashes of lightning and cracks of thunder was getting shorter and shorter. The bulk of the storm was getting closer to us. The lightning was getting so bright and frequent that it was genuinely starting to light up the entire backyard any time it flashed. And my backyard is big, with woods covering 2 edges of it. Perhaps after the biggest flash of lightning yet, my son squealed and pointed out towards the backyard. "What?" I said, to which he said he saw someone standing in the backyard. I stood up and walked to the edge of the gazebo. I couldn't see anything in the dark, so I was waiting for another flash of lightning. The next few flashes of lightning were too small to fully see into the yard, but when the next earth-rumbling flash of lightning struck, I saw what he meant. There was someone indeed standing out in my backyard by the woods. I told my son to go rush inside and turn on the backyard lights. He did so without question, and I stood in place waiting. About 10 seconds later, all of the backyard lights were on, but I didn't see the person way out in my backyard anymore. I waited for more lightning to maybe help see. But even with the lightning, I didn't see them anymore. They were gone. He, she, whatever, I didn't know. All I knew was that there was someone walking around my yard, and that didn't sit right with me. I went inside the house and locked all the doors, but kept the backyard lights on. I even turned on the front yard lights too. I didn't want to tell my wife, but my son had already done so anyway, so when she was all concerned and asking if we should phone the police, I lied to her and told her I saw the person out there leave. She asked if it was a man or woman, to which I replied woman, as it sounded less scary. For the rest of the night, the three of us watched a movie in the living room, with the storm still overhead. Eventually it was my son's bedtime, so my wife tucked him in and then came back to the living room and we started watching something else. We still heard the thunder outside. Eventually I went back to the den to turn off the outside lights, front and backyard. When I went up to the living room, my son was standing at his bedroom door, scared, saying there's someone at his window. My wife and I looked at each other and yelled, "What?" I pulled him away from his doorway, and then I stood at the doorway, looking at the window, waiting for the lightning. When the lightning struck, no one was at his window, but I believed him. Someone was out there, that much was already established. I told my wife and child to stay inside while I go out and look, even though my wife didn't want me to do that. I grabbed a baseball bat from the closet and stormed out into the rain after turning all the lights back on. I started in the front of the house, then worked my way to the side, then the back. I looked under the tables, in the gazebo, under the deck, and when I thought the backyard was clear, the last side to check was the right side of the house. I would begin to walk towards the side of the house, and instantly saw a person in a hood, but I only saw half of their face and head. They were peering around the corner of the house. Most of their face and all of their body was hidden behind the wall. If I had to guess, I'd say it looked more like a man. I screamed, but I also ran in that direction with a bat raised up. The person disappeared behind the corner. When I made it past that corner, they were gone. Even with all the lights on, I didn't see anyone there. I went back inside and told the two of them that it was okay, that I chased the man away. But my wife did not like to hear that it was a man. I made sure to close all the blinds in the house now. Luckily, we weren't bothered again by that man. My son slept in our bed with us that night just because he was so scared, and I understand why. I didn't see it, but I can only imagine how scarring it was to see a man standing at his window at the young age of 6. The city in which I live almost never gets any rainfall, so when we do, it's a pretty exciting thing. The kids like to go out and play around, the farmers are thankful that their crops will thrive, and it's just a nice piece of scenery. The last time there was a big thunderstorm, my friends and I were all playing some game together, though I can't remember which one it was. I knew the thunderstorm was rolling in when everybody's microphone played the same sound of the first thunder, and it was big. When I heard it, I thought it was a gunshot or firework. Then I saw the lightning outside my window, and hopped over to my bed to see the storm forming. What I saw was much more unsettling. Across the street from me was a man. He wore a gray hoodie and some jeans. He looked fairly tall, though not too muscular, and he was just standing there. I couldn't tell if he was looking at me or not, as his face was obscured. Then he started to walk down the street, so he wasn't looking at me. I felt relieved, yet still a bit paranoid. I got back on the game with my friends and we continued to play. About 15 minutes later, the storm had fully started. I told the 4 of them I was leaving to go watch the storm, and I'd be back in a while. I walked out front and stood under the porch, watching as the lightning flashed and the rain struck the ground in a soothing rhythm. Then I looked down the street to my left, and there he was, the man, standing at the corner of the street. I was scared a bit, but I still had my head trying to reason this out. It's not uncommon for townspeople to stand out in the rain. It is a rare occurrence after all, so I paid little attention to it. After about 5 more minutes, I decided to go back inside, and as I opened the door, I turned to where the man had stood. He was gone now, which made for a more eerie scene. I walked inside, where 2 of my little siblings were dancing to a Bubble Guppies song. My other 2 siblings were in their rooms, doing who knows what. I went back to my room, but instead of playing the game again, I decided to go do something else. Though I didn't know what to do. Then I heard the all too familiar buzzing of my phone when I received a text. I picked it up and opened the messenger. It was an unknown number. They had sent me 2 texts. The first read, "Have you forgotten?" And the next read, "I know you didn't." My first thoughts were the man that I had seen outside, but then I thought of how slim those chances were. How would he have gotten my number? Why would he target me for whatever he was trying to do? I decided my friends were pulling a prank on me and decided to check. I went to the group chat and asked if anyone had been prank texting me. They all swore that they weren't, though it's hard to tell over text if they were lying. I decided to believe them and went to watch TV. Some time had passed, how long exactly I don't remember, when there came a ring at the door. It was way too late for visitors, so who could this be? Maybe the postal service? I checked the time on my phone, 12:19, definitely too late for visitors. I peered through my blinds in an effort to see who it was, but I couldn't. The rain was coming down so hard it was like a blanket of mist was everywhere. Then one of the gunshot thunders sounded. My head slammed into the window, making a thud sound. There was movement by the door. It was a person running off. I could only assume it was the man from earlier. No, I knew it was the man from earlier. How could these events not all add up? I wanted to call the cops, but I had no proof the man had been there. He just left without a trace. I decided to try and sleep, and got about 3 hours worth, when a gunshot thunder woke me up. I shot up, then froze. Then I relaxed a little, when another loud bang sounded, but this one wasn't thunder. This one came from my window. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't let whoever was out there know I was awake. But what if they knew? I decided to just take a peek through my blinds. What I saw next was probably the scariest thing I'd ever seen. It was the man with his hands pressed against the window, and I could only assume he was staring at me. The scariest part was his mouth. His eyes were mainly covered in shadow, but there was enough light to see his mouth, and it was smiling. It was such a big, maniacal smile I didn't even know was possible for a human to make. Then he stood and left. Just like that, he walked into the rainy night from which he came. I sat awake in my chair, but I guess I fell asleep somewhere along the road. When I woke, I was confused as to why I was in my chair. Then I remembered the previous night's events, and I darted to the window for whatever reason. When I pulled the blinds up, there was one thing I could see. A small piece of paper taped to my window. On it were 3 words that have now haunted my dreams. Have you forgotten? I haven't had any further experience with the man, and I hope I don't have to. It was a night I was working late. The weather outside was awful, and I was just leaving my job to go home. It was about 12 a.m. during a thunderstorm. I used to drive a 2005 Ford Fusion, a little car not ideal for crappy weather and roads. I was taking my usual route home, and the rain was so bad that even having the windshield wipers on the highest setting didn't help that much. I still could barely see. I was going 40 miles per hour on a 55 mile per hour road. That's how bad it was. There were no other cars around me. And when I least expected it, through the water building up too quickly for my wipers to handle, thus partially blocking my view, I saw someone dressed in white running across the road from one side of the woods to the other. I saw them almost too late. I had to slam on the brakes and swerve to avoid hitting them. I swerved and lost control onto the grass before crashing head-on into a tree. The airbag deployed and my whole body jerked forward into it. I couldn't even believe what just happened at first. I was in shock. I knew immediately my car was totaled, but when I slowly started to accept what just happened, I started to look around my car for the person that just ran across the road randomly. I was currently in the middle of a quiet highway with no buildings nearby for miles and no cars to be seen. There should have been no one walking around here, especially in this weather this late. It was a work night and extremely late, so I was nervous nobody would pick up. The first person I called was my brother, who didn't pick up after several attempts. He was definitely asleep. I tried my sister next, with equal results. I didn't want to have to involve either of my parents in this, but with no other option, I called my dad on his house phone, which was sure to wake him up. He picked up on the last ring, and I explained the situation. I told him I'd need assistance, and didn't know what number to call for a tow. After ensuring that I was okay and that I had no injuries, he gave me the number for our family's roadside assistance company to call. He said he'd get dressed and drive over to me. His house was about 10 to 15 minutes away. My dad also told me to get out of the car to look for whoever was crossing the street and to keep my doors locked. When we hung up, I stayed in the car, nervously looking around every window, though not seeing much because of the pouring rain. I truly was so scared that I was about to piss my pants, knowing someone was out there, wondering if they intentionally ran in front of my car. I called our roadside assistance company, and they were sending a tow truck right away. About 10 minutes passed since the phone call with my dad now, and I texted my dad, "Are you on your way yet?" He texted back, "Yes." I had my hazards on, though I'm sure the car being ran into a tree would help enough in finding me. I turned to my right, as if I instinctively knew someone was there, and I jumped out of my seat and screamed at the top of my lungs as I felt like my heart dropped out of my body. There was a soaking wet man in white, looking into my car with his mouth hung open in an O shape and his eyes squinted. He then put his hands on the glass and started to rub the windows. I didn't know what he was doing, but I yelled at him to go away. He started to try opening the locked door, and when it wouldn't open, he started to pound his fists on the glass. He did all of this with his mouth still hanging open in that weird O shape. I didn't know what to do other than call my dad again. He picked up, and I basically cried into the phone that there was a random man trying to get into my car. My dad screamed into the phone not to open the doors, and that he's almost here. He stayed on the line with me as the man outside started to hit the window with his elbow, causing me to scream and my dad to panic into the phone. Surprisingly, the glass didn't shatter, and as if my prayers were answered, I saw headlights approaching from down the road and pull up behind my car. The man outside looked to the other car, which happened to be my dad's, and as my dad stepped out of his car and charged at this creep, the creep tried to run away into the woods, but my dad tackled him, and I swear beat his face in to the point that his face would have been completely covered in blood if it weren't for the heavy rain washing some of it away. He held the man down as I called the police. The tow truck driver arrived on scene first, and he was of course shocked at the unusual scenario he just pulled up to. Police showed up not long after that, and it was the most satisfying feeling seeing that man arrested. Not only was he charged criminally, but we pressed charges for the damages to my car. His name is Marcus Green. I never showed up to court. My father and our lawyer did. I didn't want to see that man ever again. The disturbing face he was making, along with seeing him striking my car to break in, is something that will stay with me for a long time. Craigslist is nowhere near what it used to be. It's been replaced by websites like Facebook Marketplace and Poshmark. Maybe a big reason for this stems from not just the rampant scams on the website, but also because it's the go-to site for a lot of creeps. So for old time's sake, here are 3 Craigslist ads with disturbing backstories. This was an ad posted in Kansas City a month ago that a viewer by the name of Christian sent in. It's a harmless looking ad for an old vacuum cleaner. This was posted in the for sale by owner section and listed as free. It was titled Free Dirt Devil Vision Bagless Canister. The ad description said, "I'm giving away this perfectly working Dirt Devil bagless vacuum cleaner. My wife and I got a new vacuum and no longer need this. First come, first serve. Will disclose address after communication." The listing left a phone number to contact, and so Christian replied to the ad, sending a text saying he's interested, and promptly got a response. The reply back was, "Hello, what is your name?" To which he replied, "Christian, what's yours?" They replied, "Jackie, nice to meet you. The vacuum is all yours. When can you come pick her up?" Christian replied back, "If you can hold it for me until tomorrow, I'd come then." They replied back, "Okay." So the next day, the seller sends a follow-up text, "Hello, Christian, what time can you pick up the vacuum?" 8 o'clock if that works for you. What's the address? They replied back, "Sounds good to me. Give me a call. I'll explain how to get here." So at this point, Christian calls the number as directed and a man's voice answers the phone. Not the female voice he was expecting after the seller introduced themselves as Jackie. Christian asked if this were Jackie he was speaking with, and the man said no, that's his wife, and that she's not available right now. This was the first red flag for Christian, since it was the same number he was contacting the whole time, yet apparently both this man and his wife were using it, which would just seem a little unusual to anyone since no one really shares cell phones. The man on the phone introduced himself as Brock and explained how to get to the location. He gave Christian the cross streets to what he described as his warehouse, which he'd have to open the gate for. Christian had a pretty normal reaction, asking what he meant by warehouse, because he was expecting to be given a regular home address to pick up this relatively small item.
Brock told Christian that he owned part of a small warehouse where he and his wife would store a lot of their old belongings and stuff they were going to sell. He claimed to be a wholesaler. Christian agreed to come to the specified location at 8 o'clock near Grandview, which is south of Kansas City. The specified cross streets led him to a quiet T intersection in an area with nothing but unmarked buildings that resembled warehouses. Christian parked his car and found the gate that he was told to meet Brock at. When he texted him that he was there, the gate started to roll open automatically, and beyond the gate was a long driveway between two different brick buildings leading into darkness. Christian called Brock, who rejected the call and texted Christian to come inside the gated area and inside the warehouse straight ahead. It was so dark ahead of him that he couldn't even see a warehouse. Christian asked Brock to bring the vacuum outside by the gate, and this is where the alleged Brock person stopped answering. After trying to call Brock's number multiple times, eventually the calls would go straight to voicemail, likely because Christian's number was blocked. So Christian hurried back to his car and rushed home. Upon checking on the ad once he got home, the listing was taken down. Doing a reverse phone lookup, he found that the number didn't come up on any phone book websites. By avoiding going beyond that gate and into the darkness and unknown ahead, he likely avoided something terrible. The following Craigslist ad was posted on May 24th of 2012. On the surface, it looks a little unusual, but like something you could expect to see on the casual encounter side of Craigslist. The poster of the ad said he was looking for a male who was interested in becoming an actor in a personal movie he was making. His requirements for the person included being between the age of 18 and 35 and good-looking, and including a face and body picture. He also stated he wasn't going to pay them anything, as the movie was strictly for his own pleasure. At the bottom, he states he's not looking for sex. The poster of this ad was Luca Rocco Magnotta, a notorious Canadian murderer who had a whole documentary made after him. The unfortunate soul who responded to this ad was 33-year-old Jun Lin. Luca spent a lot of time in mental hospitals growing up, and in 2002 he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. He first attracted online attention when he started posting videos of cats. Not cute videos though. In 2010, a series of videos were posted online which showed Luca suffocating and drowning kittens. These were not his first crimes. He had already been convicted of fraud in 2004 after racking up $17,000 on a friend's credit card, and in 2005 he was accused of sexually assaulting a woman. The videos spawned outrage over the internet, and an online community of people formed to work together to try to find the man behind the videos. A tip led them to Luca, and around this time, Luca posted another video in which he fed a cat to a snake, and started hinting that his victims might shift to humans. Unfortunately, 33-year-old student Jun Lin was the one to have the misfortune of being Luca's first human victim. Jun was a lonely Concordia University student who didn't have many friends, and had only been in Canada for a couple of years. Jun responded to Luca's ad, and they met that same night. Security footage captured them entering Luca's building, and that night, Jun sent a text to his ex that he would see in the morning, saying good morning. It would be his final text. The next day, Luca posted another video called One Lunatic, One Ice Pick. The video captured the savage murder of Jun Lin. In it, Luca stabbed Jun with an ice pick while he was tied up, before performing unspeakable acts and dismembering his body. A few days later, viewers of the video were attempting to report the crime to police, but the reports were dismissed by police because they believed the video was fake. By then, Luca had already started disposing of the body. CCTV footage captured him throwing bags into a bin while wearing Jun's t-shirt. On the 29th of May in Montreal, Mike Nadeau, who worked as a janitor, found a suitcase that had been sitting outside the apartment building he worked at for days. He ignored it until the suitcase started emitting a foul smell. Upon opening it, he found Jun's torso inside.
So the curiosity, I guess, got the best of us. We said, let's open this and see what's in there. So there was a small lock. We cut it. We opened up and there was a torso with no head and just,
Lucas sent the rest of Jun's severed limbs to various different political parties and elementary schools. Eventually, police suspected that Luca had traveled to Europe, and this was confirmed when CCTV footage caught him in Germany. Authorities were able to arrest him in an internet cafe in Berlin on the 4th of June, where he was sitting reading articles about himself.
In 2014, he was found guilty of first-degree murder, publishing obscene materials, committing an indignity on a body, and criminally harassing the Prime Minister, and he was sentenced to life in prison. Knowing all of this information makes this little Craigslist post that usually wouldn't bat much of an eye in the casual encounter section incredibly disturbing. This last one happened to a freshman girl in college who I'll refer to as Christina. Christina was strapped for cash and was looking to sell her prom dress and other dresses she no longer planned on using. So she made a listing on Craigslist with pictures of all the dresses, including 2 pictures of her wearing the prom dress. Christina left her number in the Craigslist ad to be contacted on, which for a young girl putting 2 pictures of her body on Craigslist of all websites wasn't a good idea. Not surprisingly, she got a phone call within the hour, and it was someone who claimed to take interest in the dresses. It was a man on the other end, who she says sounded anywhere from 35 to 55, with a slightly raspy voice. He said he was calling about the dresses she posted on Craigslist, to her surprise because she would obviously expect only females to call or text and inquire about the dresses. He explained that he was looking to buy the dresses for his girlfriend as a gift, and he wanted to know if they'd fit her, so Christina told him all of the sizes and prices per dress. The man asked for more pictures of the dresses if possible, which she agreed to, so she kept him on the phone on speaker while she took more pictures of the dresses laid out on her bed. Mid doing this, he started asking more questions that progressively got weirder, starting with how tall she was, how the dress fits up there, and what size bra she wears, to which Christina started feeling uncomfortable, mentioning to him that's not relevant. He apologized and said he just wanted to make sure it would be a good fit for his girlfriend. He then proceeded to ask if the dresses were tight on Christina, and she replied some of them are moderately tight. The next question was where Christina really started to question this man's intentions. He asked if there was any chance she could send him pictures with her wearing all of the dresses to get a better idea of if they'd fit his girlfriend. After a few seconds of silence because Christina didn't know what to say, the man on the other end asked if she used to wear panties under the dresses, followed by a short creepy chuckle, and then he said, "You have a really cute voice." Christina hung up the phone and blocked the number. She also took the ad down from Craigslist and didn't plan on listing it again on there. But she would later find out that he would start stalking her after a random account started following her on Instagram and requested her on Facebook. Both accounts had no pictures and the name Mike Allen. A quick lookup of the number that called her revealed the name Michael Allen on Google. This meant she was now dealing with the stalker situation, and it only got worse from there. When she blocked both accounts, she kept getting calls from a no caller ID number, and it only stopped when she set up silence unknown callers on her phone, but the stalking didn't end there. One night later, there was a running car with its lights off parked outside Christina's house. She noticed this before going out. She called to her dad to point it out as possibly being the guy who had been stalking her, and as soon as her dad stepped outside, the car drove away with its headlights still off. At this point, Christina's dad sent a threatening text to the man's number, and then tried calling multiple times to no avail, to end up leaving a loud voicemail. It seemed to do the trick, as the stalking stopped as far as they know, and hopefully that's the case for good. Christina was smart in how she handled this, hanging up and blocking the number as soon as the man made creepy comments, and blocking his social media accounts. Unfortunately, there's not much to do once someone has your number if they want to stalk you, as a lot of your information can be found just through that. That's why it's best that if by some chance you still use Craigslist, don't use your real phone number.